Welcome to Spill the Tea. Today I'm speaking with Leah Busboom, a romance writer who enjoys a happy ending. So welcome to Spill the Tea, and today we are speaking with Leah Busboom, who is a romance author who enjoys creating a happy ending for her readers. She has a new book coming out called Always in My Heart. It's a sweet small town falling for my brother's best friend romance, which I think hits all the happy tropes that we would love to hear more about. Leah, why don't you tell us more about your book?
Okay, thank you, Josephine. I appreciate this opportunity to get to talk about it. So, I wrote an original series called The Connor Brothers.
Hmm.
And after I got done with 12 books in that series, I
Oh,
kind of,
wow.
lost a little steam on that series. And I started writing rom-coms. But then I had several readers say, why don't you write more Connor Brothers? Well, I thought, how do I do that? It's like, is there another side character I can write about? And I got this idea to write about the kids because in all the books, I had, who they had children and, but you didn't know much about the kids. You just knew sort of, oh, they had a baby and this was the name. And so it's called the Connor Brothers Next Generation. You kind of have to suspend your timeline in your head because these kids probably haven't grown up yet, but they have in my books. And so I take the first book in the series, which was Finding You. That's the original series. And I wrote the book about their daughter.
Hmm.
And you get to see the original characters again, which I think is really fun. And I loved writing them because you go back and remember all the things you liked about those original characters come through in the next book. So this is book 2 in that new series, Always in My Heart. And it's for anybody who's read the Connor Brothers, it's the daughter of Max and Maddie, which was book 2 in that series. I'm mirroring the books, book 1, that.
That's cool.
And this girl, she's a twin. Her name's Faith. Her brother's name is Wyatt. And his best friend, Hudson, is always been in love with her, but he's scared to like admit it for a couple reasons. One is she's a serial dater. She dates a guy for about 2 weeks and then moves on. And he's sort of like, do I want to be one of her, exes? And also he's very close to her brother. It's like, I could really mess up this relationship with the brother, right? I could, ruin that if the Faith and I have a bad breakup. So the whole book is kind of him pondering whether he should be brave enough to tell her, and then her finally realizing, oh my gosh, this guy's been right under my nose the whole time. And every time I date somebody, in the back of her mind, that person wasn't Hudson, is his name. But
Oh,
she doesn't really click for a while until about halfway through the book, she's like, you know what? I've been searching for him all the time. Why don't I just date him? It's kind of funny. Um, it's a small town. It's set in Minnesota. I used to live in Minnesota. And all the characters from the original series come back. The grandpa, the mom and dad, the fact that the mom loves dogs and she just got a new dog, and all those things come back. I feel like my readers are really enjoying it.
hmm.
Uh, and I think that trope is fairly popular, falling for your brother's best friend, you
Yeah.
know. So that's how the book got started, that series got started, and the book got written.
So you find that after having written a large series like that, there is very much a loyal fan base.
Yes. And they actually reached out and said, can you write more Connor? I'm like, oh, well, sure, but what will book 13 be? you know, and I have seen these spin-off series that do work. they'll write about the brothers and then maybe they'll write about another arm of the family or, those kind
Mhm.
of things. I guess writing about the kids, I don't know how frequent that happens, but it's so much fun because you start to think in your mind, okay, when I originally wrote those characters, they were the two people falling in love, right? Now they're married, they're the parents in this
Yeah.
new series. And you start to kind of think, now, how would they be as parents? And what would they do? And what's the interaction with the daughter? And it's really fun to write that.
I have a series where I have 10 books now with this family. So it started off with three brothers, and then we got into the cousins, and I have to finish the whole set. And then I'm like, I don't know if I would want to go with the kids or not, just because there's so many. I made them have so many kids.
Oh, well, see?
They seem to
Yeah,
procreate a lot, these people. But it is a
that's
lot of
funny.
fun revisiting your main characters and putting them into like secondary background characters and seeing where they are during their lives during the next books, right?
Well, exactly. I mean, they're different in this book. They're the parents now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the mom gives, the girl some guidance when she starts to realize she's falling for the brother's best friend and she's like scared. And her mom talks about in the original book, she was scared to marry the dad. She really was. She was like very hesitant. She turned him down at first, and she tells the daughter all this. And I think that's kind of cool that I can bring back that story into this story.
Bring back that memory, so to speak. Now, do you have to read the whole series like from start to finish to get the context of it, or are they like kind of standalones in a series?
They are, and my readers are commenting on that. Says you don't
Mhm.
have to have read. In the beginning of the book, I do tell the reader this is based on the original series, and it's this book if you want to read about the parents first. If you don't, you don't, right? It doesn't
Yeah,
matter. Yeah, it's not like you'd be confused.
which is nice because
Yeah,
sometimes you pick something up and you don't know it's part of a series. Yeah.
right. And then all of a sudden you're thinking, who are all these characters?
Very true. So you have written, you said some comedies as well.
Mhm.
Are those in series or are they
Yes.
standalones? Can you tell us a little bit more about those?
Oh, sure. So after I got done with Connor Brothers, remember I said I wrote 12, kind of ran out of steam. I started on romantic comedies because I noticed sort of a trend of wow, look at how many of these are coming. Isn't it funny? You almost feel like you're late to the party in a way. I was focused on small town, sweet romance, and all of a sudden I'm like, ooh, maybe I should try to write a romantic comedy. I didn't know if I'd be good at it. Can I write
Hmm.
comedy? My books have a lot of humor in them, but isn't the same in a rom-com, so to speak, right?
Yep.
So I started my rom-com series is called Too Busy for Love. And it's about these people who are really too busy for love. They're caught up in their careers. And my first book in that series is Shopping for the Grump. And she's a personal shopper. Catastrophe follows her around like it's, her second name kind of a thing. And I'll just give you one quick scene of the book. She's going to interview with him to because he's trying to figure out he's too busy. He can't do his personal shopping, right? And he's kind of grumpy, doesn't like shopping. So he's interviewing different personal shoppers. So here she comes. He's interviewing them during the day at his office. And she grabs a pair of shoes and she drives to the interview in her tennis shoes because she's like, I don't want to wear these high heels very long. So she gets there, she replaces the shoes, and she realizes that she picked a pair of black shoes that are not matched. One
Oh,
heel is higher than the other one. Now, have you ever tried to walk in that? So she's walking and she's trying her best to let it be known that her shoes are a different height. And I tell you, that first scene, I've had so many people comment on it and just say, "Oh my word, I was laughing till I cried."
That is a very good setup.
It
Like,
was really funny. And he kind of notices, but he's a guy, he probably doesn't think shoes don't match, right? He's thinking, she's got kind of a limp or but the lady that is his assistant, prim and proper, gonna sign her in and tell him he's here. She notices right away. She's like, looks at her shoes, it's kind of funny. But after I wrote that one, I realized I really can write. I mean, I didn't know I sort of had a knack for it. And the whole book, that one, is just filled with incident after incident of this poor personal shopper lady that she's really great. She's a great person. At least I like her a lot. But she has something go wrong every time. It's just hilarious, I'd call it. In the description on Amazon, I say it's from her point of view, the blurb. And she says, I'm falling for my grumpy client, but can I not set his suit jacket on fire? She knows she's like this walking catastrophe.
I think that's the fun of writing a rom-com because, it's making the situation just worse and worse and worse and going, how are they going to get out of this? And keeping it funny and lighthearted at the same time.
Right, right. But the readers did comment and say it was believable. They could
Yes.
believe that she wore those mismatched shoes accidentally, right? Where do you ever read a rom-com and you think, how could that have even happened?
Yeah.
So I try to keep it in the realm of this could really happen, even though it's outrageously funny, you know.
Highly unusual, but plausible.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
So how long have you been writing?
Since 2017. Uh, that's kind of a little bit of a story I can tell. I worked at this really stressful corporate job
Hmm.
and I quit.
Good for
I
you.
said, I said, life's too short to have all this stress in your life. So I'm kind of sitting at my computer, thinking, what do I do next? I didn't plan very well. I just sort of went, I'm quitting. Um, and I've always read romance books, and I thought, oh, that'd be easy. I'll just write one of those. Oh my word. I was very naive and did not know. But I, plunked out a romance book, my first one, not nearly as good as any of the ones I write today, because you really do learn a lot on your journey.
Hmm.
But that was my first attempt. And I learned so much about, well, how do you self-publish and how do you format a book and, just everything. And I managed to get connected with a really great editor. She's fabulous. She understands me.
Yes.
She
That
doesn't
always
try to
helps.
change me. She guides and opens my eyes to certain things. Like I'll be writing along and I'll think, ooh, Bonnie will want me to do this. She's really trained me well. So I feel really fortunate that I got her as an editor, and she's been on all my books.
Awesome. So, you are then you're self-published, obviously, right?
Uh-huh.
And are your books wide or are they exclusive to Amazon?
So far, I've left them exclusive to Amazon. I'm really debating on that because
Hmm.
you start to read about authors opening up kind of their own bookstore and how, should you have all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, which is
Yeah.
the Amazon thing, right? Um, I haven't been brave enough to branch out yet because I really do get a lot of Kindle Unlimited page reads. So I feel like,
There's
it's really hard.
there's real
Well,
pros and cons to doing it,
yes.
because if
Uh-huh.
something happens to Amazon or your account gets shut down, you're out, right? Your income's
You're
gone.
You're out of business.
But going wide, it takes longer. You don't get the KU reads. And if you go direct on your own store, then you have the website taking care of it,
All
all
that.
the
Yeah.
background stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and you really have to have that audience to be able to do that, I think.
I know. And I
You have
feel
to be
like
established.
I'm starting to establish an audience. My problem is I'm still working full time. I went back to
Mm,
work at a nonprofit, and it's really difficult. I said I'm a one person band, right?
yes.
Because I have to write the book, have to market the book, I have to publish the book. Could I
It's
set
all
up
on
my
our
own
shoulders, right? As
bookstore?
independents. It really is.
It is. It's a huge effort. I don't think people can realize all that's involved. If you want to try to, do well, if you just want to have a published book, mm, that's fine. But do you want it to sell? Do you want to try to get, high in a category so that you know, Amazon helps you when you rank high in a category. It behooves you to try to do that, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you said that you enjoyed reading romance. Was there any particular other reason why you got into writing, or like what made you think that you'd be good at writing?
Well, I don't know exactly. I always enjoyed writing short stories, you
Hmm.
know. Turning it into a full-length novel is a whole different, you know, ball game, so to speak. And I've learned a lot about that. Now, I found that I'm more of a pantster than I am a plotter. And that bugs my husband to death. He's like, you should really write an outline and detail. And I said, my characters tell me where the story should go. Now, isn't that most people kind of look at you like, what? What do you mean by that? But really, as you start getting into the story, it forms in your head and you can kind of say, oh, yeah, we could go this way with that, where if you planned it, 3 weeks earlier, you might not have seen that coming.
Hmm.
So I do have a lot of fun in the writing process. And I feel like I've learned a lot on how to do it and do it much better than I did when I started. But I think my main motivation was I think everybody, or at least a lot of people, sort of have this desire to say, I published a book. You
Yes.
know, that's kind of the cool thing. But I have to admit, Josephine, after I published my first book, I'm like, now I need to publish a book that everybody wants to read.
That's very true. And that's the thing too. Like it's such an accomplishment to finish it, to, polish your baby up, throw it onto Amazon or whatever platform you're using and say, I made it, I published it. But when you make that first sale, when you have a following of people asking for the next book, that's when you know you're onto something.
Right. And that's what motivates you to say, oh my, I've got to learn how to do this, better and
Hmm.
come up with a lot of great stories. I've had so many people ask me when I wrote that first book, I don't know that I thought, what's the next story? But I've learned a lot. And in fact, I had planned it as a standalone. I was just going to publish this book, right? This
Hmm.
romance book. Then I started thinking, ooh, that should be part of a series. You start to learn, right? So now, thank goodness, I've got enough, experience that you have to kind of plan your series before you start. you
It
know,
helps.
it does. Otherwise, you feel like you painted yourself into the corner, right? You're like, oh, what's that next book going to be? I don't, where I try to set them up really well. In fact, in the Always in My Heart, I've had people say, oh, I can't wait for the next book because I set it up really well. It's the next daughter of the Connors, and the male lead is going to be the assistant. The main guy is a park ranger. Of all things, I picked a park ranger. The assistant to the park ranger is this kid, and he's 20-ish kind of, and oh, I had so much fun writing him. sometimes my side characters just, I love them. So now he's
They'll steal
the
the show if you don't watch out.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, I've learned how to write a series and have it be where it's not just sort of an ad hoc thing where, oh, okay, I'll go choose that character and that'll be the next book.
I think like with my Ramsley series, I had meant for it only to be the three. At first I was doing a standalone. It wasn't working. It wasn't working, and I realized that's because it wasn't book one, and it was supposed to be a three book of these three brothers, right? So I'm
Okay.
like, okay, this is book two. So I set it aside. I wrote book one, finished book two, wrote book three, and went, okay, I'm done. The three brothers are done, right?
Mhm.
And then you come back and you're like, yeah, but what about the cousin you mentioned? And his, the potential there. And then I'm like, yeah, but who would I pair him with? And the next thing I know, I'm like, it's the nurse. It's the nurse from book one, you
Right.
know?
Right. See, that's what happened with the Connor brothers. There were three boys and a girl. So there was four books planned there. And then after I got that fourth one written, I wrote about one of the guy's brothers, the boy that the girl married. So all of a sudden, because he played a big part in getting those two together. And
Hmm.
then all of us started rolling, oh, okay, the cousin, the guy we mentioned in this story. Then after 12, I just couldn't see, you can't write about, such
Well,
ancillary characters that you just sort of barely mentioned them.
yeah.
It's harder, anyways.
Well, after 12 books, you feel like you've exhausted the family pretty much, right?
Yes,
It is an
yes.
extensive amount of books.
But here I am writing about them again.
I'm
But
like
it's
I'm
their
on
kids.
book 10. I'm like, I think I've got maybe three books, maybe four, probably more like three, and that's it. Unless I get requests, and maybe I would start with the kids, but I kind of hope not. I think three is
That's
it. But
funny.
you never know. In 5 years, I might miss it and be like, okay, let's revisit it. You
It
just
is.
don't
It's
know.
like revisiting, is sort of like your friends and your family or something,
Yeah,
right? Because you had fun writing that original series.
and getting all the little voices out of the head. So, you've written 10, 12 books there, and obviously you've started on the family and you have other series. How many books in total have you written?
43.
Oh, wow. Good for you. 43 with a full-time job and busy as can be. So it can't take you terribly long to write a book then.
Well, some of them are easier than others. Have you ever heard the murky middle comment?
Yeah.
Where you're writing along, boy, you got a head of steam, this book's going great. And then you go, hmm, what do I do now? Kind of those kind of books I takes longer, but I try to write a book about every month, maybe two every other month.
Mm-hmm.
But I wrote a series of kind of short. They were uh, I joined another group of authors for this series, and it's called The Christmas Inn. And everybody goes to this Christmas Inn. It's in Tennessee, and they spend time there. And the whole inn is mapped out for you already. Here's the rooms. Here's what it looks like. Here's everything you can do, and you just write the book around that. So they're not as long. They're fairly short and sweet. So I wrote that set
Mm-hmm.
with those other authors. And then I also was part of the Potter's House, which is a Christian romance
Oh,
set of
cool.
books. And that was really fun too. We each wrote a book. There was seven of us, I think. And so, they just boom, 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 seven. And then your next book, boom, 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 through seven. So you were writing at a pretty good clip there to keep up, and get all your books out on time.
So
Um,
that's that kind of like an anthology. How did that work? Like being with the other
well,
authors?
all we did was we wrote the same theme, but our books could stand alone in their own series. And it was all about sort of redemption and second chances in your life.
Okay.
One of them, I had a single dad and he lost his job. That was the very first chapter. And now he's like panicking. Yet the townspeople rally around him and help him. And
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's one of those where, there's a good ending. All my books have a good ending, but a really good ending of how he works out of this bad situation that he was in. And all those books are set in that kind of situation, I guess you'd call it. Yeah.
Well, we always love those happily ever afters, you know. I think
Yeah,
that's one of the things why we keep coming back, those comfort happy ever afters.
right. And my biggest challenge is breaking them up because a romance has a real format, right?
Hmm.
Happy, blah, 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 oh, break up, get back together, right? You watch a Hallmark movie, you know what it's like.
There's going to be some conflict in there that drives them apart before they can have their happy.
Right. A misunderstanding. One of them gets a job somewhere else, whatever you have to do to have that happen. That's my biggest challenge. My husband teases me about it. He's like, "Did you break them up yet?" Because I love writing them falling in love, and all this. Um, but then the breakup, sometimes I'm like, do I have to break them up? But I do, and they get back together. So,
That's awesome. So if somebody wanted to start writing romance or romantic comedy, what sort of advice would you give them?
well, I think I would say, um, decide if you want to do a standalone or a series. And series are a lot more popular, because you'll get the read through effect, which
Hmm.
all of us authors love, right? You get them hooked on it and they read book one, two, three, they just keep reading. Um, and then plan if you're going to write a series, because really, I had no plan. I just started writing, and I don't know that that was the best thing to do. I learned a lot. But I also think what I learned too is look at what other kinds of books are in the niche that you're writing for. When I first started writing romance, I thought contemporary romance.
Hmm.
Boom. Oh my word. I'm competing against, millions of titles in the.
Yes.
Can I narrow it down some more? Small town, sweet romance, romantic comedy. Try to say, can I fit in a niche where I can get my book recognized, meaning it'll stand out a little bit more than within Amazon's vast array of contemporary romance. That's hard to compete, really hard. Um, and then look for what's your strength, right? What's your voice? Do you like writing funny scenes? Do you like writing poignant scenes? What do you like writing? And then, do it.
So, we're coming toward the end of our time. So I want to thank you so much for everything that you have, all the advice you've imparted, all the information, and the really, fun parts of your books that we discussed. I am going to put links in the description of
Okay.
your latest book, Always in My Heart, so people can find you on Amazon. And if anybody's interested in looking you up, I think I have your Facebook page as well. Uh,
Okay, great.
I think I
Author
think
Leah
that I think that's
Busboom.
the link you sent me, either that or your website itself. So people can
Okay.
find you and learn more about your books and your happily ever afters. And I just really want to thank you for coming.
Well, thank you, Josephine. I appreciate it. I love talking about my books. So this was a fun opportunity, and someone will find my book, read it, and love it, or an author that's just getting started. Maybe I can help them, with some of my advice. So
That's great. Well, thank you very much.
thank you. I appreciate it.